Good evening, everyone. I am Lisa Nicholson with Oasis Church International Mental Health Coordinator, and I'm so happy to be here this evening. Thank you for joining us. We have a very special guest this evening on our podcast. And before I introduce him, I'd like to ask you to share with others. We have a very good topic that we will be discussing on this evening as it relates to mental health. And I would like to give a shout out to my pastor, Pastor Cassandra V. Fullwood, for allowing us to move forward, continue to move forward with all things mental health, bringing awareness, and also providing support, education, whatever we can to our community on mental health. And without further ado, I am going to introduce Mr. Jason Neal give you an introduction of himself. Jason is an acquaintance of mine that I've met. Wow, it's definitely over a decade ago. And he actually ended up being a vendor at Manor Care when I was working at Manor Care Health Services, and it was through his gym. So we're going to talk about that very soon. So Jason, it's so good to have you here on this evening. And if you would just go ahead and introduce yourself. Go ahead, Jason. Looks like you're frozen. Go ahead and unmute. Okay, so we got disconnected. We're going to give Jason a few minutes to get back in, get connected. So again, just share with others. Very good topic. And the topic is bullied to gangsta to fall. Bullied to gangsta to fall. So if we could just bring Jason on screen, on camera. Okay, I see Jason out there. We just can't see you. If you can hear me, Mr. Neal. So go ahead and try going out and coming back in, Jason. Go ahead and just go completely out and come back in. Okay, just bear with us. All right. So we have you back, Jason. I can hear you. Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. Can you see
Good,
it?
good. That's okay. So, again, thank you so much for joining us, Jason. If you could just go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Jason Neal. I used to own a couple fitness centers in West Palm, and kind of went through a situation with my health, and so everything crashed. You know,
Okay.
but
Okay.
that's what happened.
Okay, so before we even get there, just give us a little background about yourself, where you're from, what kind of businesses that you've had in the past, what you're doing now, and then we're going to jump into the topic.
I used to own the fitness centers, just like I said, but then how I got there was from my background from being a gangster and crime, and I
Okay,
ended up
okay,
trying to be successful, and everything just crashed. It came full circle.
okay, all
So
right.
but I understand where it started at with the mental health in the beginning of how I got there. You know,
Okay, so we'll
it
get
was
there in a
good
few
mentally.
minutes. So Jason, are you from the West Palm Beach area?
Yes, yes, yes. I was
Okay,
born in New
all right.
York. I was born in New York, but I moved here when I was like, I think 13.
Okay, okay, you
Yes,
moved to Brazil. All right, okay. So,
yeah.
welcome to Oasis podcast again. And Jason, I think we're just going to dive in because I know you're ready. You seem like you're ready to dive on
Oh, it's
in. So
all good.
we're gonna dive in, and
Yeah.
let's talk about, and we talked briefly about, some things that you experienced as a child, and you mentioned bullying, and then where bullying led you. So, if you would share the age that you experienced bullying, just give me your age
I
where
think
you experienced bullying.
6 and 7 years old.
Okay,
That's where
so
it
in
started.
oh, wow, wow. All right, and then go ahead and just share with us how you were being bullied.
Um, as being my mom had three kids when she was 18, 19 years old. So I was staying with my grandparents. So that's really all I remember in my early part of my life. My
Mm-hmm.
grandparents. You know what I mean? But it seemed like I was the one that couldn't function like the other nephews and cousins. We had a big household with like 12 of us in there, 12 kids. And
Okay.
I was the one that they like the flunky, they would call me, because I just didn't pick up on things that they did so fast. They were very talented. My family is very talented. Like they play the drums, they sing. I couldn't do anything.
Mhm.
But I was just the one that needed that a little bit more affection and that special need, that attention. I was a loner,
Mhm.
very singled out. And I stayed myself a lot because I felt abandoned,
Okay.
because I needed that my only love I ever felt when I was a kid was from my grandfather and my grandmother. My mom was gone, so and then that's where it really started at when you're a child, when I was a child, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. I felt inadequate to be around people. I felt I was very, very shy,
Mm-hmm.
very insecure. My other cousins were talented, would go to church, they would play everything. I was very insecure. I always wanted to stay out the way. I
Right.
lost my power,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got a
Yeah.
little bit older and
Mm-hmm.
I got trained by the bad influences in the neighborhood, I got my power back. And then I never
Okay.
wanted to
I got.
relinquish my power. Once I
I.
got it with the violence, the guns, and the cocaine and drugs and all that violence, I finally
Okay.
got my power. And
Okay.
once
I
I got
got
it back,
you.
I let go.
Okay. So, when you were going through that, wow, that was a mouthful. When you were going through, that between 6 and 7, the bullying, did this come from kids in school? Did it come from family? Did it come from neighborhood children?
It came from school and my family. The only peace I had, I think, when I was a kid was when I was with my grandfather working in the apple orchards. Anything after that, I don't remember because it was very traumatic.
Okay.
Only time I had peace was when I was with my grandfather working in the apple orchards. Nothing else. I never enjoyed school because I couldn't read, and no one ever took the time to teach me how to read. Like even but the most horrendous thing I remember as a child is going to Bible study. I
Mm-hmm.
was so scared of Bible study because back then they had those Bibles that people say thou, they, the, I'm a
Mm-hmm. The
kid,
King James version.
yeah, it was so hard for me to read, and then people would laugh at me because I couldn't read, and I would be terrified to go in line like they have the kids read in Sunday school. I was
Mm-hmm.
terrified. And,
Right.
I just felt like I would be successful, at anything. Like I was so scared to read. Even it followed me through high school, middle school, and high school. I couldn't read. And they don't teach, they don't take time to show young black kids, deal with certain black kids, and then we become criminals because the streets become our
Right.
teachers, not the
Right.
school.
Right. Yeah.
Once I became,
It's so true. It's so true. I've heard a lot from our black men, especially that was also, excuse me, also in sports. And
yeah,
I found out, when I was an adult, never really knew it, when I was in school, but found out, as an adult that a lot of my classmates did not know how to read, were not passing their grade because the teachers were not taking the time with them. But as long as they can play sports, then they would just pass them on. So I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I mean, it's really, sad that our black kids, have had to go through that growing up. And I believe it still happens today, but I do see how the public school systems have changed. And I know they have like the tutoring, and all of that, but you didn't hear a lot of that when we were growing up. So it's so true, Jason. So just going back to the way, the children, family members, I know that had to be, tough for you, family members bullying you. Like what type of things were they? Was it just like the picking on you, or were they making you do things that, are pushing you up to do bad things? What would you say? I think you have a bad connection.
I'm picking up a little bit, Lisa. Can you hear me? It's
Yes.
an echo in the phone. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
They were just real, they were cruel, like they're gonna. I don't like to use this word because I use special needs. They used to
Uh-huh.
be like, he's retarded, he's slow, he'll fight all the time. Like I had a very quick temper. That was my only defense mechanism from
Got
being
you.
bullied. Like I teach people
Mhm.
all the time, bullies are just regular people. They just need love. They're missing
Mm.
something. They've seen that. So that's how they got their power, by bullying people.
That's right.
Somewhere along the line, someone scarred them and made them become like. We
Mhm.
coveted what we see every day. We just don't become something. I've been around hustlers all my life. We just wasn't born hustlers.
Right.
We just people we already have that aggressiveness in us. People just cultivate it and bring it
Right.
to life like a plant. They nourish it in the streets and then they bring us to life. And then we become monsters because it
Mhm.
becomes natural to us. Crime just becomes a part of life to us. That's what it
Okay.
was. And it started
Right.
young. I remember when I was 13, I started selling crack cocaine, at a young age. Whenever
Mhm.
kids would think about school, I was thinking about cutting up rocks, making money,
Wow.
because nobody was there to watch over me. You let me out here in these streets with these older kids, they're going to turn us out. It's just like a pimp with a prostitute.
Right.
If you don't
Right.
watch
Right.
these little girls, they got men out there, we'll turn them out. I've seen
Right.
everything in my life, and I try to
Wow.
address it, bring consciousness about what's going on out here in these streets. I tell people
Mhm.
all the time, like black kids right now, it's only 5 to 8% of black kids get mental help in school. How
Mhm.
20% of white kids get the help, 5% to 8% of blacks get it. So
Mhm.
a lot of times they don't even let black kids know that they got mental health classes that can help you through what you're dealing with. They don't let us
Mhm.
know anything unless we
Mhm.
go look for it. That's why they used to tell us, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book.
It's
But
very
they don't tell
true.
us anything.
Absolutely.
But right now our kids are getting taught by the internet. The internet was the worst thing that ever was invented. The YouTube, all that stuff was the worst thing. It just took us even deeper into a dark place because we we glorify foolishness.
Uh-huh.
I study a
Mhm.
lot of different cultures like China and India. They have
Right.
all the smart kids because they don't
Right.
look at TikTok or Instagram, their parents showing them science projects and stuff like that. That's why the
Mm-hmm.
Indians and the Chinese are in the next 2 years, they'll be the most millionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids
Mm-hmm.
are falling behind. All our kids do is think about, if you a young black kid, is violence, it's anger.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to conflict, solve conflict with a resolution. They think it's
Right.
with violence and fighting. I was like that because no one
Right.
taught
You
me.
know, it's
I used
it's, it's
Most
very
of us learn
true.
from
Very true. And I see my pastor
most of us learn from
put something in the comments. She put patterns, and it's so true. This is something that she's been
yeah.
she's been teaching on. It's a series she's been teaching on for over a month now, and it's the patterns where we were, told it's generational curses, but we're not cursed, especially if we're believers in Jesus Christ, because Jesus came to
Absolutely.
break all curses. But there are generational
Absolutely.
patterns, and you mentioned that, if it's falling down from generation to generation because the pattern has been set. Many patterns, have been set, whether it's the system, educational system, whether it's the family dynamics, patterns. So I do like what you said, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to circle back around in terms of like mental health and what we, offer now. But it was
Okay.
definitely not the same as it is now. So I want to know, like, you were introduced to selling, cocaine. So was it from, and then, yeah, we're talking about conflict resolution. Absolutely, Pastor saying, yeah, conflict resolution, as well. And not having nobody there, to even really go to, that's very hard on the child. So when it came down to selling drugs and living that, gangster life, who introduced you? And I hope you all are sharing this with parents, anyone that have children. Please watch, share, because it's so important. And you're listening to someone that went through it himself. It started out with bullying. He began to have some mental health issues behind it because he started feeling inadequate. He didn't feel like the rest of it. He started feeling isolated. He started feeling abandoned and rejected. So all of these are things that individuals go through, and these are traumas. These are traumatic experiences. So Jason mentioned that what he went to, he felt like he had no power. He couldn't read. He couldn't do anything that, others did. So what he mentioned is he went somewhere where he can feel empowered and feel like he have the power. So now he's resorting to the streets. So Jason, so who introduced you to the streets at 13 years old? Was it family members or the street people in the neighborhood?
No, it was the guys in the street. They just embraced me and they were like my father. I
Got
can't say I grew up in a decent household, but I
right.
have this type of personality that's very addictive. And once I like something, I love it. And it just
Gotcha.
grew out of control where it became normal to be violent, to sell keys of cocaine. And then when I became there, I felt like nobody could stop me. Because money gives you power. It shows you who you really are. It really does. I tell
Yep.
people all the time, I've had every car you can imagine, all the millions of dollars. It still didn't give me
Mhm.
happiness. It still was that
Right.
pain from my mother. I needed my mother, when I
So,
was a kid. I said, but now me and my mom have a great relationship,
right.
and it
Hmm.
healed me. But I try to teach kids now, if you don't watch these kids now, someone else will raise them. And that's the problem with
Right.
African Americans, because we had kids that's so young, we don't know no better. We never had parents. It's like a trend. It's not a curse.
Yes.
It's like we don't
Pattern.
take
Hmm.
responsibility. And
Right.
I watch a lot of Jewish people and I watch a lot of other races. And I was in business, so I can watch that. I made millions of dollars through these people. And I was like, they would do business with each other and they would always build each other. We're the
That's
only
right.
people, if you watch anything on YouTube, it's something negative about us. Everybody talk negative about black people, even us, instead of us bigging each other up and helping each other and saying, hey, no, I'm not going to let you down, my brother. I owned a
That's
business
right.
that had 10,000 members. I had maybe 200 that were black, and
Wow.
the rest were white, Caucasian, Italians,
Hmm.
Jews, it was such a group, it was such a vast variety of different people, but blacks didn't support me. They
Wow.
always mention like, oh, he got it because he was a criminal, a street guy. They don't think I heard these things, but I'm the type, you know, it is what it is, you know. And
Right,
I tell people all the
right,
time, what's understood don't need to be explained, you know. And
right,
that's what happened. And
exactly.
now I work with kids to teach. I talk at schools like, hold on, you guys got to watch these kids just like a daughter. I have daughters,
Right.
I watch over them. I'm not going to let them be
Mhm.
running the streets and doing what they want to do. No, I'm going to put structure in your life with a little
Right.
discipline, and that's it. We've lost discipline, you know.
Yes.
And kids are out of control. They talk back to teachers. Back in my day, you couldn't do that, you know. But these
Right.
kids are out of control. But it's
Exactly.
not their fault.
It's
It's the
not
people that we
right.
put over them. It's the grown-ups' fault.
Hmm,
They want
hmm.
love. All these kids just want you to tell them that you're proud of them. I love you. I'm proud of you. But that's the problem. We don't do that. We punish them all the time. We say you're bad, 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 and we don't give them
Right.
hope. So I had no hope. I was lost. The gun gave me hope in selling keys. And when I became popular and money and women, that gave me. I was already insecure. It just gave me security, and then it just got
That's
out of control.
That's so good. You
You
know
know.
what? Let's
And then
let's
when I
just
lost,
pause right there, Jason. You know what? What you just
yeah,
said was so good. Everything. But do you all hear
yes.
Jason? He said it was money that made him feel that he had control. That is what's happening. He also mentioned about he was vulnerable. And that's what happens. You know, people are going to be able to pull you in, especially those negative forces are going to be able to pull you in when you are the most
Yes.
vulnerable. And that's what happened to this child. This was a child who had already gone through some things from a family dynamic standpoint. He didn't have his mother, his grandparents. What about your father, Jason? Was your father in your life at all?
No, I just reached back out to my father after 20 years and told him I forgive him. I
Very
was like,
good.
Dad, I'm not mad at you. You know, he's like, I'm sorry. I was like, I can't, because I wouldn't have became the man I became from all the
Right.
struggles. Something good came out. I might have had billions of dollars and lost all my gems, but I
Right.
tell people all the time, you know, dealing with illness, it showed me people of faith. That's why I tell people to focus on your dreams and aspirations. Don't let
Yeah.
someone tell you what you're good at. Ask God to tell you what you're good at. Go to
Right. That's
God if you
right.
need any answers. Don't go to people.
That's
If you have a
right.
relationship with God, God will show you your gifts all the time. I didn't know. I thought my gifts was
Absolutely.
robbing and selling drugs and robbing banks and doing all that bad stuff. That wasn't my gift. God just gave me a
Hmm.
little grace out there.
Right. Yes,
That's
he
all He
did.
did. Because all my friends caught him in prison for life. He didn't give me life in prison. He gave me an illness,
Mhm.
but I understood that you don't get away,
Right.
you get by. I always
Right.
tell everybody,
So
don't get away. That
Jason,
energy you put out there is gonna come back. Yeah.
right, right. So Jason, I want if you can, I would like you to just dig a little deeper and let us know because we have so many young black men that are being raised without, their fathers. And this is something that we've been, especially at Oasis Church International, been praying for the fathers, the men, because it's so important that our children have their fathers in their life. The same thing. I'm glad you mentioned, I'm so glad to have you on because fathers are very, very important. But also, you being a male child and not even having your mother in your life and not having your father in your life, it impacted you. So tell us a little. You did mention your mom was, very young. Tell us a little bit about that father story so we can get some understanding and some knowledge and what not to do. Fathers that are listening, boys that are going to become fathers one day.
What I do, I tell young men to take your time. The problem is, let's say if I went to your church, right? I would start a program for young men. The first thing I would do is get them together and spend quality time with them and give them a part-time job so they have something to occupy their time. And then they get a debit card where they earn their own money every week so they can go buy shoes and not want to sell dope and not want to do other things that can get you in trouble. I don't mind will get you in trouble. That's why
Right.
I tell people stay busy. If you keep
Yes.
looking at positive people and keep them structured, they won't go the wrong road. They'll stay right on it. They'll know I'm doing the right thing because they're getting everything they need. Most people do bad things for peer pressure is number one with black men. I
Yeah.
want that nice jewelry. I want that shoes. I want them shoes. And I can't get it. Your mom don't make enough. She's on welfare struggling. They're going to do anything they can to get it. All I need to do is whisper in their ear, say, hey, I'm gonna teach you how to get them shoes. I'm gonna give you this dope. You go to school and sell these weed and bring me my profit. You keep your profit. Now you can go get those shoes. See, but why not teach them how to go get a little part-time job? That's what's wrong with the city right now. They will not give kids opportunities to go get part-time jobs so they can get a little debit card and teach them money management. You make $200-300 a week, just work. Put this away in the savings account, spend this on your shoe. But black kids that.
Right.
Violence.
So tell us the story about your father, Jason.
The internet, that's all they show about.
I think we're having a bad connection.
When I wrote my book, I put it in my book about my dad.
Okay. Tell us about your book. Yes. Let's go to the dad first, and then I do want to hear about your book. I can hear you.
When I did my book, I couldn't even read. I had a court reporter type my book at that particular time. And I spoke about my father, and the court reporter said, wow. I said, my dad should have been arrested. If my mom is 15 years old and you're 20 years old, I said this, and I'm being honest. I'm going to tell the truth. In my book, I said someone should have been watching over her.
Yep.
Because he's a pedophile, 20-year-old, 21-year-old messing with a 15-year-old.
Right.
And then, by 16, she had 2 kids. It's not my mom's fault. It was my grandparents' fault for not watching over her. She can still be grown and doing what she want to do, but you're still the parent. You still have to address those issues. When you see her be fast, like, I don't play that with my daughters. I'm going to watch over them,
That's right.
And I just don't play them games. And that's what happens in all of our households, no one's perfect by far. Right. We all got to go through our trials and tribulations. And I tell kids, you're going to make a mistake, but let's try not to make a mistake that you can't come back from. Right.
That's right.
I know kids that went to prison and they're doing 20 years. I was at the detention center at 15 for armed robbery on 45th Street. Yeah. I went through that. I was like, come on. I try to stop them from doing these things. Let's slow down a little bit. I know you want the cars. I know you want that. I had all the cars. I had every kind of Mercedes, every kind of truck, everything you can imagine. It still never brought me happiness.
That's so good.
What brought me peace is when something tragic happened to me and I went to God. That's what gave me peace for the first time in my life. Because I saw all I had was God. Everybody else catered to my ego.
Right.
They claimed that it was my friends. When I disappeared, I lost everything, everyone disappeared.
That's right.
But I told everybody that's been the best blessing of my life. So now I want to teach kids so you don't have to go through it. I know you're gonna make a mistake, but let's try to structure your life a little bit better so you don't make as many mistakes as I did.
Right. So I think we having a bad connection.
Mental health is so serious.
Yes. I think, okay, I can hear you now, Jason. But so basically you were trying to fill that void that you didn't have, not having that father, just that love, that acceptance, that guidance. You went out there, you were trying to fill that void. So between from when you were a child until you called your dad and apologized, did you all ever have a relationship?
No, never. He had a previous relationship after he left my mom, and he took care of other kids, but he never took care of us. But I'm not mad at him because everything happens for a reason. And then I started giving him grace. God gave me grace, so I gave him grace. What happened is I said, well, maybe his daddy didn't teach him. So, you got to give people grace. God gave me grace. So that's how I look at life now. I try not to judge. I try to evaluate.
You have to give grace. Absolutely. And forgiveness. Someone put in the chat, absolutely forgiveness. But it's so important as well that we are showing up, that we are in our children's life. Because
absolutely.
A lot of times, most of the time, those things can be avoided, if we showed up. if we are present, if we are raising our children right, these children now are raising themselves, get into trouble. Now you have parents that have done everything that they can, and that they still may want to choose the wrong path. But 9 out of 10, there is somebody that is missing. There's dysfunction. Like Pastor said, dysfunction is real and impactful. There are patterns. There is some type of pattern that is in that family that has not been dealt with. You have the general, like I think you may be a bloodline breaker. I say I'm the bloodline breaker, in my family, because I have followed patterns. I was raped at 14 years old. It was my Burger King manager. Now, I should not have been. And the thing about it, the reason I kept it silent, you said something very, very true, Jason, and profound. You said she may have been fast and all of that. And that's what us young girls were called. It was fast. But no, it is, this child is hurting. This child is missing some love. So what she is doing, or what he is doing, is going out there and getting it from whatever means that they can. My Burger King manager, looking back, at him, this man had gray in his beard. So I don't even know if he was in his 30s. I am not sure, but I was 14 years old. And where he was supposed to be taking me home, it ended up, going another route. So so what happens is that you suppress that. You don't want to go to your parent because you're afraid that they're going to call me fast. They're going to be mad at me, whatever. And then years go by where you're in bad relationships, where you're out there, selling drugs, doing whatever you can to cover up that pain. So I hope people are really listening. Absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned that about your mom. She was young. There may have been patterns in her life, but it has to be a bloodline breaker where we say stop. So I'm so happy you have forgiven your father. I had to do the same thing, with my parents, because I've gone through some things, in my life as well. My father not being there, in my life, and, having a hurt mom. So again, it's patterns, so my mom was hurt. I was hurt, going through my life, and it goes on. So I'm a bloodline breaker. So I don't want to. Yes. So I want to kind of talk about, we talked about the gangster. You went to the detention center. I heard you mention that. And then have you ever been incarcerated before?
Yes, I was, but I had so much money. I was not scared of the state. I was always scared of the feds, because they're a little bit different in the state. I could beat the state when you got millions of dollars and stuff like that. You could pay the best lawyers to beat the state. You can't beat the feds. So that's it. I was always scared of the feds. That's it. Nothing else scared me, because when they come, they got you. It was a cat and mouse game we played. They knew I had all the cars. I would hear from other people that I had on my payroll, cops involved too. Oh, them people want you, Rock. They want to know how you driving these expensive. How did you get that kind of money? They know how much money you put in those gyms. They know. They seen that, they can go behind. And I was like, catch me if you can, That's like, I was trying to get out the game, because I know you can't keep playing the game. I tried to invest, but I always tell people, you can't get away. If you put negative energy out there and you do bad things, it's got to come back some kind of way. It's not going to come back the way you want it. It's going to come back. And that's what I dealt with. So I'm at peace with it.
Right. So explain the feds. Explain the feds and the state. I mean, I know there's some, I don't know a whole lot, but I know that there are some people that may not understand, the difference between, when would the feds come for you and when would the state come from you, and why did you feel more comfortable with the state versus the feds?
The state are like jokes, like police officers. We consider them jokes. The feds, they'll watch you for 3 to 4 years. And they'll get people to tell on you, but you won't know that these people tell on you. You will not know. And that's what happens when the feds build a case against you. You already done scored out to 20 years. The state, they got to catch you. If they catch you riding around with a key of cocaine, you're going to score out to some time, but it's not feds. The feds can pick it up, but it's just everyone feared the feds. They never scared of the state, because you can beat the state. State always want to give you probation or do this, stuff like that. The feds don't give probation.
What would make the feds come after you?
That's who everyone was scared of. You ask all big time hustlers, they scared of the feds. Okay,
I'm
I always
sorry.
teach these people
I
this.
think what's
If I sold
happening is
drugs to
that
20 people, that
I
did you
think
hear
what's
me?
happening, I think you're hearing me like after the fact. So there's a delay. And so I'm sorry if it seems
Okay.
like I'm cutting you off. So what would make the feds come after you?
When they see you shining with them nice cars and people start talking, and that's what
No, tell me
happens.
about from a
I
legal
always tell
standpoint.
people this story. Okay, from a legal, this is how they come after you. If you campaign, you will get elected. That means people see it. If I'm driving a $150,000 car, right, and I don't got no real job, they saying how you can afford that, and they already hate on a black man who have that type of stuff. If a, not to be racist, but if white people see you driving something nicer than them, they gonna have a problem with that. I'm just keeping it real with you. People don't like to tell the truth. I tell the truth. It is what it is. If you know when
Mhm.
they see that, they're like, how does he afford that? That's a $150,000 car, and he don't have a job. That's why you better have a job if you're driving that kind of car. But most likely,
Mhm.
this is how the feds get on you. Most young black men, when they start getting money, they get flamboyant. And
Mhm.
so instead of them investing like the old time people invested, they might did illegal stuff like, prohibition and all that bad stuff, but they invested that money. Young blacks go buy jewelry. They go give it back to the people that sold it to them. Instead of
Mhm.
investing in their community, apartments and condos, I tried to invest in buildings and stuff like that, but I understood what God was showing me. But this is
Mhm.
how the feds work. They see you doing things like if I sold drugs keys to 20 people, then 20 more people know I'm selling keys because they got 20 friends. And that it's like a business. It balloons, it snowballs, it get bigger and bigger. It's just like if I work for Burger King, if the food good, people gonna keep coming. If the
Yeah.
dope is good, people gonna keep coming. It's the
Mhm.
same thing. Everything is a product. I tell people
Mhm.
all the time when I do consulting, if you have a good product, people will buy it. As long as you
Mhm.
have it, if you have it where people can get it and it stays good, people will keep spending money because
Mhm.
we're creatures of habit.
Right,
Some
right,
people love food, some people love
right.
cocaine, some people love alcohol. Imagine if we close Sam's or no more alcohol, all the alcoholic stores go out of business, and one person open. It'll be a line wrapped around it. They doing the same thing with gas. I'm sorry to change the subject. It's
Yeah,
supply
so
and
the
demand.
alcohol, so yeah, that'd be good if it went out of business. No, just yeah, I mean, really. But
Yeah,
in
but
terms
people gonna
of
go
the Fed,
crazy.
and the reason I wanted you to bring that up is because you do have some people watching, and you was like, well, you all wasn't worried about the state, and I understand what you're saying, but the Fed is you're afraid to go to the Feds because I think it's because their prison sentence is going to be very long, and you probably be gone for a long time when you go to the feds. So now my question is, so you were bullied, you felt like you had to get your power, you went and got your power back, then you went and you got into the businesses. So tell me your venture with the businesses, and then when did you wake up and say what I'm doing is wrong? So how did you build your
I
empire? I know money wise how you did it, but then how many gyms did you end up having, in businesses
I
that
had
you did?
three.
Okay.
I own three gyms, and I had opened a gold business too. That I would buy all the scrap gold. I was the first person to start scrap gold, and then I just moved into,
Okay.
I elevated into bigger. Yes, like I had money and I had to clean it up. But what stopped me was my last. I used to rob banks and everything. So what
Wow.
stopped me was um, a jeweler came in town, and some of the big jewelers used to have me go get them. Like, got $1 million worth of diamonds coming in, rocking. We want you to get them. So I watched the guy. Me and my boys watched the guy for about a week. We put on our FBI badges and our police badges, and we watched him and we said it's time to go get him. The shipment is coming in of diamonds, probably $1 million, $2 million worth of diamonds. We already got the fence. Who's gonna buy it from us? He'll end up giving us like 800,000, 900,000. So as I clicked the door and I, tied him up and laid the man down, the old man looked up at me and I opened the safe. It was a big safe full of jewelry. We going through it trying to see what we were trying to look for what we wanted because there was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
strap, broken jewelry, cheap stuff. We don't want the cheap stuff. We want the big stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
as the man, he laid down, this happened in real life. The man
Mm-hmm.
looked up at me and said, "Why are you doing this to me?" And I looked down and guess what I saw? I saw my grandfather in real life.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then I was shook. My friend was like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Damn, I saw something. I saw something that spooked me." He's like, what's wrong? I say, no, just keep going. Look for the diamonds. And then he looked back up at me and say, who sent you? And I looked back, it was my grandfather. Now, my grandfather's been dead since 87. No, I ain't
Wow.
crazy. I know what I saw. So I told everybody, stop. And my friends were like, Rob, man, we still got more stuff in this safe. I pulled my gun on my friend. I say, stop. I will leave you here. I'm the boss. Stop. Take what you got. We found the diamond. Let's go. I got home that I had about 3 apartments that I rent out. But because no one ever knew where I lived. I was very sneaky. So as I'm talking to them, I was telling them, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I don't want this no more. My grandfather used to tell me God would send warning before destruction.
That's right.
I know that old man talking to me. And I love all my friends, and 2 of them are dead right now. I moved their bodies. 2 of them are gone. They got killed in a home invasion. And I looked at everybody, and I said, how much money do you got put away? One of them said, I'm sitting on about 500,000, Rock. I said, how much money you got put away? I'm sitting on about 400. And then my other friend said, I asked everybody, how much you got? And one of them said, I'm sitting on about 300. In my mind, I said, damn, man, we made millions of dollars. That's all y'all got. And then one of them asked me, how much you got put away? And something in my mind said, don't tell them. So I have $1 million put away. I told them I'm done with this life. So I said, y'all take the diamonds. Y'all can take my cut. I don't want it no more. I don't want this life.
You said you had $1 billion?
$1 million.
$1 million put away. Okay.
Yeah, a
Wow.
little bit over $1 million. Yes, my own money.
Wow.
It was easy. It was. I used to open safe deposit boxes and push them down. I had that kind of money. That's how I opened all those big gyms. So I told them, I'm done. I'm done with this life. And I started crying when they left, like a baby, sobbing. I said, God, look what I've become. So what I did was I got my gun and I said, God, if you're real, you better show me. And I put my gun in my mouth because I was at my end of my rope. I knew my grandfather would have been so disappointed. And someone called me at the same time. And I said, I just want to kill myself. And they came over to the house and they were like, don't do this, Rock. Let's go get you some help. Because I had done lost, I became a monster. I just didn't care. Like, look at what I became. My grandfather would have been so disappointed. And
so you had become numb.
Just like to what was going on. I did so much crime and it became a part of me, selling cocaine and harming people, you know, like even celebrities. I did a lot to celebrities. I have a lot of celebrity friends. They just like us. They smoke dope. They do cocaine. They do heroin. They do everything. If you only knew the people that I know, but power gives you that, you know. Right. I remember one time I was at Vegas and I was gambling and a famous pimp said something to me. He liked the Rolex I had on. And he said, I know you look like your husband. I do. I told him I get a little money. So he looked at me. I'm never going to forget. His name is Iceberg Slim. You can look him up who he is. He said, young man, every time you try to get something for nothing, you're going to suffer one way or the other. And I tell all the young kids this now. Every time you try to get something for nothing, you're going to suffer. You're going to suffer.
Wow. You know, it really shows how, number one, how God loves his children. And when he comes in and says no, or that's enough, you know. So although it may have seemed like, you know, it was your grandfather that was like in person, you know, God allowed that, you know, to, you know, for you to see, like, you know, it was your grandfather. He allowed that because that's the only thing that would stop you. You know, you had it going on, you know, and bringing that person that was in your life that tried to do the very best that he could, you know, raise you, you know, with the values. Now, who taught you to the business acumen to become a millionaire? Who taught you that?
It's crazy how I would always observe everybody. When I was a young kid, and I hate to say this because people probably take this the wrong way, we were so poor. I used to wish I was white. And I would watch white people, how they lived. And I would always ask questions like Jewish people that I sold cocaine to. I'd be like, how do you do that? How did you get that? Okay, Rob, I was very inquisitive. I was like a sponge. If you told me how to, I was never a hater. I was the type of guy, if you got something nice, I ask you, man, that's so nice. How did you get it? And you're going to give me the information, so I'm going to take it and run with it. because I got hustle in me, so I'm gonna go get me some money some type of way. It might have was the wrong way, but now I learned you can do it the right way, and that's
That's
what happened.
right.
I just was
That's
very
right.
observant, and I was taught to slow down. My friends was moving fast. They wanted women in the fast. I never wanted that. I had a goal. I wanted the money, stack this money up, and then find a way to get out this situation. I just
Wow.
needed a vehicle to get to where I need to be. The vehicle was the money.
Right, right. You
Yes.
know what? I so love this. You're being very transparent, and I absolutely love your transparency. And I just hope we have some young men on here, even women, that are listening, because there's so many people that chase the money, but at some point in your life, all of that is, and we're getting ready to talk about the fall, but that money is not going to keep you. It's not going to help your sanity. It's not going to fill the void. And you are a prime example. And I'm so loving this, Jason.
Excuse
And
me,
you know
Lisa.
what
Can
I'm
I
thinking
talk?
about when you were saying about the sponge, immediately I thought about how the enemy wanted to destroy you because you had the brain. God created you where you had the brain to learn in everything. But because of the patterns and the things that you had gone through, the enemy used that to destroy you, pretty much it was to destroy you, so you didn't learn how to read.
Yes.
There was a lot of things you wasn't able to do, which was a setup from the enemy, because that same sponge mind and brain that you had to learn the other things,
Yes.
you had that when you were born. But the
Yes.
devil is a liar. Let's talk about the fall.
Yes.
Let's talk about the
Well, can I plug
fall.
my phone?
Wanda
I
says thank you
apologize
for
because
keeping it real. Yes, yes,
can I plug my phone in? Can I plug it up? My
yes,
phone, my
yes,
battery.
yes, absolutely.
Can I plug? Okay, hold on one second.
Okay. Yes, I'm so loving it, you all. It is so good. And again, I hope, you know what, and even if they're not online now, sit your children down and tell them to watch it. Let's sit down as a family and let's watch this, just like we sit down and watch movies. So I agree, Pastor. He always had that intellect. He always, God gave him that. This man did not go to no class, for the business acumen. Most of us have to go to school. We have to, learn different ways that you save and all of that. This man had the brain that God gave him from a
Yes.
child. This is just a prime example of how the devil sets us up to make us feel less than, we're stagnant. We go a whole different route. And the thing about it is that you still have to end up coming back to God. So just think about mental health. Now we're talking about mental health,
Yes.
everything that he's going through psychologically, and you go the wrong way or you go left, you still have to deal with those issues. People, you have to deal with the issues. Jason, let's talk about the fall. I'm ready to hear the fall.
Okay, the fall was a big fall. Everything. Okay, God started talking to me during the fall. I remember waking up 3 o'clock in the morning. I heard a voice clear as day said, "Blessings are going to overtake you, and be still and know that I'm God." I heard that clear as day. And as I heard that, about a week later, everything went to crashing. Every door locked. I was slandered. It's funny how when I did good, when I did bad, I was praised. When I did good, I was slandered. And
Mm,
God told me, you had to see how it feel, how you robbed all those banks. You hurt a lot of people. You got to see what you did. And I understood what God was doing, because God told me, you can't hold on to that stuff. I'm going to give you all that back. But you didn't earn it. I had to sign my gyms over. I didn't make them. I spent millions of dollars, but I had to sign them over for free. And God
wow.
told me to do it. And they ended up
Wow.
closing anyways. But
Mm,
God told me, but I didn't get sick. God was saying, you trying to hold on to this. So he allowed me to get sick. When I got cancer, it taught me. I was like, God, why you forsaking me? Why so much coming? I know I did a lot of bad things, but God, why you doing it this much to me? I said, just don't bring me to an open shame, because I tried to do the right thing, God. I hired black kids. I hired white kids. I hired everybody to try to keep them working. But God had to show me, you reap what you sow. I didn't take your life, Rock. At least I didn't kill you. At least I didn't send you to prison like your friends My friends in prison called me all the time. They were like, "You got away, Rob." I was like, "I didn't get away. He gave it back another way to me. You know, he
Right.
disciplined me another way. He had to show me error in my ways, so at least I can
Mm-hmm.
go tell someone else, don't do this. This what's
That's
gonna
right.
happen." You know, and then
Right.
deals went. All the deals I had a big deal on the table with Don King. It went down. Everything
Wow.
went away. All the celebrities I had business dealings with, every door closed. And then when I got sick, God told me, "You better sign it over because you hurt people to get that money."
Mm-hmm.
And he said,
Mm-hmm.
"I can't bless that." And I tell people all the time, God is a just God.
Yes, he
God is
is.
just. And I
Yes.
tell people all the time, everyone gonna get their turn on that seesaw.
Right.
Everyone gonna get a turn.
Right.
It's
That's
just how
right.
you deal with adversity, And now I
Right.
see different doors open for me now for speaking engagements. People calling me all the time now, and I'm like, "Okay, God,
Right.
now I understand. I can
Yeah.
make the same millions of dollars by speaking. I got contracts. I'm dealing with the Geo Group for the prison system right now. I'm working on a deal with
Mm-hmm.
them." And I was like, "Okay, God, now I understand." But you can't get away. You're getting by. That's why I tell young men and women, when you think you want to get a man with for money, you don't be careful because you don't know what's coming with that. It could be
That's
HIV. It could be a
right.
disease with that, sweetheart. Be careful. Ask God what's for you. Not because
That's right.
the ego drives all of us. My
Mm-hmm.
ego was so big, God had to humble me. God humbled me. I
Yes.
talked to a real close friend of mine. His brother just came out with a movie, and me and him talk about this all the time. Randy Jackson, Michael's brother, and we
Okay.
talk all the time. And I was like, "Randy, how did it feel growing up like that?" He said, "Rob, why do you think I'm always to myself now? I don't trust people." I said, "I understand. I understand."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "I'd rather be around a street guy like you than around these corporate people. They always want something from us. They pushed my brother to this stuff. He
Mm-hmm.
teaches me about what he went through as a kid, how his father pushed him so hard. And
Mm-hmm.
people like these people, they just like us. They have problems. They're sad. They're not happy.
Right.
And
Right.
when I fell, God took it all. He took it all. All my cars. He took my brand new Escalade. My mom took. I gave my mom my Mercedes. I was like, "I want to start fresh, Mom."
Right.
You know. He took
Right.
everything I owned.
Right.
And
Right.
then I thought God
Oh, wow.
punished me. I was like, "God, you did so much to me." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I done suffered enough, I think, you know. But you have to deal with the issues of what you put it out there. So I got it back, and I'm at
Mm-hmm.
peace with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From being a
So have
millionaire to
you
going to
ever
nothing.
reached out to receive therapy?
You know what? A friend of mine told me that today. I was like, no, because you know what I thought my therapy was? Forgiveness and leaning on God.
Mm-hmm.
He put people like you in my life. People always come in my life and they'll give me a word from God to give me confirmation. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to me, therapy is great. I don't knock it, but I just feel like my therapy was what I went through, was
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
humbleness.
Right.
I had to
Right.
destroy the 6-year old inside of me. I destroyed that and it started, because all of us deal with a 6-year-old inside of us
Mm-hmm.
that we need
Mm-hmm.
to make
Right.
sit down sometimes, you know. And that was my
Right.
therapy, the trauma, the pain from what I went through, losing everything. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it was very therapeutic,
Mm-hmm. Right,
knowing that I
right.
lost
So do
everything.
you feel that from a mental health standpoint, do you feel, and I can relate in terms of a little girl, 6-year-old child, like I learned about little girl Lisa when I started going to therapy. And little girl Lisa is the one that, was crying out for help, did not realize it, raised my children, was a single mom, at one time, went through school, got my
Yes.
education as a single mom, good job. But little girl Lisa was so broken, and I was operating, I raised my kids as little girl Lisa. And finally, little girl Lisa
Yeah.
had her fall. And it's just like, and this is, I was diagnosed with having bipolar disorder. And, I had my ups and downs with that. But it wasn't until, I went to therapy. And I'm going to say this, I am a huge proponent of therapy, but whatever works for you works for you. Like you said, if you feel like, what God has brought you through, that was therapeutic for you. So by no means am I saying that, but what I found out about little girl Lisa when I went to therapy, and she was able to articulate it to me. So when I realized that little girl Lisa is in action, little girl Lisa is sabotaging relationships while you are doing well and you're functioning well, even in ministry, little girl Lisa still has issues that need to be dealt with. And until you deal with those issues, you're not going to be in a marriage that's going to be successful. You may not have the best friend that, has been there, pretty much all your life for you. You're going to destroy not you, but then others as well. So both of you. So I had to deal with, and what therapy did, it gave me, coping mechanisms, but it was the grace of God and it was the healing power. I give him all the glory. And then God put that angel in my life who is my pastor. I met her when I was 12, and then she circled back around in my life at 18, who opened her doors, to me, and has been in my life since. And I believe that God sent her in my life, which changed the trajectory, of my life, because had I not had her in my life, who kind of modeled, a lot, for me, from relationship to, being the woman, education, career wise. Now, my mom, I have a very good mom, educated mom, very, very good mom, taught me the fear of the Lord. If she didn't do nothing else, she taught me and about Jesus Christ, so I accepted Jesus at a very early age in my life. But it's so important, to be able to become whole. Pastor was talking Sunday, teaching Sunday about healing versus being whole. And I see that we lost Jason. I'll tell him to come on back in. But it's so important. I see you, Jason. You're back. So yeah, so it's so important, if you're out here watching, that you get healed, and also not just healing. God wants to make you whole. And I do believe what Jason has gone through, I believe the hand of God is on his life. Number one, it was on his life before the foundation of the earth. Everything that we're going through, God did not allow it, but what the enemy meant for bad, God takes that and he turns it around for our good. God didn't cause it. Let me say that. God didn't cause it, but he does allow. The enemy can't do anything to us without God's permission. But what he meant for bad, he turns it around for our good. Jason is now going, you wrote a book. You got to tell us the name of your book as well. He's going and he's, helping other people, speaking engagements and all of that. So I wanted to just circle back around from a mental health standpoint, because it is so important that we don't sabotage ourselves, that we don't go left, whatever direction, to try to fulfill those needs, because at some point it is going to crash. Jason shared his crashing. My crashing was an awakening. I've got to get myself together, because I want to be all that God has for me to be. God has blessed me with a very good husband. I am now walking in my divine calling, where now I feel like I'm in my divine calling, we can do everything else, but when we're walking in the purpose and plan that God has for us, I'm telling you, that's when all blessings are going to flow. And I believe that's what's happening with you, Jason. God's going to bring you back full circle where he wanted you to be from the beginning. Amen. And we're going to be praying about your situation as well, in terms of cancer. You shared that as well. Tell us about your journey, with that, and how you're coming back. And it's 8:05. I'm not going to keep you all too much longer. I didn't have an end time on this, like my Bible studies. But so yeah, Jason, go ahead and just tell us.
It taught me about the body. It made me responsible, and it makes me want to help other Black people, of our people, because our people are being left behind. The new trials they don't tell us about. They don't even tell us about new drugs that's coming out for women who are dealing with breast cancer and stuff like that. They will not tell us anything. We have to learn by trial and error. That's how we learn. What I want to do is just start teaching people to stop giving money to the Cancer Society and these foundations, because the money never gets to the people that need it. I've seen a lot of people who didn't have insurance. They get like shushed away. They treat them like garbage. They get on a list and they need the medicine. But Black people are study wearing these pink gloves and pink hats and walking miles the money to the people that don't need it. you know,
Mhm.
and I'm tired of it. I see it every day when I go talk to people and try to help other people that's dealing with this illness. Like, you guys got to start watching what you eat, you know,
That's
stuff like
good.
that. Start going get checked. Black people will not go get checked. I don't understand it, you know,
Mhm.
until it's too late, till I'm found out. Why not be proactive and
It's
not
the mindset,
reactive, you know?
patterns. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I try to teach us that, you know, but you know, I'm still growing, you know. Like I heard you say something about when you change when something negative happened to you, fail. Usually that's what makes us change. And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
tell people, usually when things going good, you they blue in the face to do this, they're not gonna do it. People change with pain. Pain
Mm-hmm.
alters all of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
People like
That's
whenever
right.
you're good, you're not gonna listen. Only when God sits you down and you can hear then you can hear God when you sit down. When God does
Right.
something traumatic happen to you, that's usually what happens. That's why I tell
Right.
people, don't wait till God sits you down to learn a
Oh,
lesson.
that's
You know,
right.
fear Him
Yeah.
now. If I knew what I
Right.
now, like I would never did those things in the past, because I could look
Right.
back and say,
Right.
"Hey, look what happened to me. I reaped the
Yeah.
harvest." So that's what
Yeah.
happens, you know. And I try to teach
Okay.
kids that if I made millions of dollars, you can make millions of dollars. I had no
Right.
education. I just had
Right.
drive and
Right.
discipline, you know.
Yes.
I had the
Mm-hmm.
guts to go through it, you know. Even if it was
Yeah.
the wrong way, I still did it.
You're right.
I still became the first black man in Palm Beach County history to open up 3 big fitness centers with no
Okay, I
education.
missed that. I'm sorry.
So I was thankful for that. And I tell God all the time, thank you. Huh? Did
You
you hear me?
became the first black man to what now? I missed
It's
it.
free. The first black man to open up 3 fitness centers in Palm Beach County in the history of Palm Beach.
Amen. Amen. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I tell God, thank you all the time. Experience that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
if you want it
it's okay.
again, God will
Happy
do
for a
it.
reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yep.
don't want it
So
again.
I
It
like
was
what
very stressful.
it was stressful. I hear you.
Yeah, very, very stressful. Very
Exactly. Well,
stressful.
God is
I
definitely
don't want
having
it
His
anymore.
way, and
Yeah.
and I agree. Pastor say Christ is above cancer. Christ is the real big C. Pain alters us, and it's so true. I just want to kind of piggyback on something you were saying, in terms of, there are times most people wait until something happens to surrender to God. A lot of times we are in situations because of patterns that I was talking about. And like, for example, I always
Yeah.
had the love of God. If it was not for the joy unspeakable and just who God created me to be, I should have lost my mind. Actually, there was a
Yeah.
time where I checked into the mental health institute, and I was there for a week, and I was able to see a lot, and I realized that there's help for me, there's hope for me, but I never ever gave up on God. But what I knew is that the
Yeah.
information that was given to me about my mental health, I took it and I went and got the help. Because so many times
Okay.
people would take the information and they will cover up, they will put a mask on, they will be in denial. But I knew God had greater for my life. So the pain and the trauma, I did the same thing, Jason. I had It's a Girls thing. Not just that, but the youth mentorship at our church started, reaching out to the young ladies there, because God will use your pain and use it for your purpose. Absolutely, He will. I'm a prime example of that. So I didn't experience, the now what happened was, because of the rejection, I sought love in all the wrong places, which was in men, but because of the way that I was raised, I always wanted to be married. I wanted to do it the right way, but I got into relationships that was not good for me, and
I understand.
so God is, real amazing. And although, so it still comes back to what we're talking about now, although I made those poor choices because of the hurt, you made your choices because of the hurt. It was maybe, at more
Absolutely.
of a larger scale and bigger magnitude. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is the hurt and the pain. Parents, Please love your children, show them love, listen to what your children are saying. Listen when they're not even talking. Listen to their body language. Listen, help your children, be there for your children, raise them in Jesus Christ, knowing Jesus Christ. If it had not been for me knowing Jesus Christ and getting a personal relationship with him, even being introduced to him as a child, I know I would not be here today. But there is nobody
Yes.
like Jesus, nobody like him. So
Yes.
thank you so much, Jason. If you could give us the name of your book, we will, and we're going to have to do this probably offline. We're going to have a workshop. This is not the last time, Jason. It's going to be an in-person,
Okay.
for us as well, where we can, have some dialogue with our young men, have some dialogue with our
Yes,
teens.
ma'am.
They're the next generation, and we got to be the bloodline breakers.
Absolutely.
So I so appreciate you. Oh my goodness. Any questions in the chat?
You're
You can
welcome.
put them in there. Yes, I went through a lot of counseling myself. Awesome. Yes. This has been amazing, Jason. And I have to say, I'm just so proud of you. I'm proud
Thank
of
you.
your transparency.
Thank you.
So yes, God has greatness for you. So what's the name of your book?
It's called The Rock Story. No struggle,
Rock-
no progress.
Oh, I love it. The Rock Story. No struggle, no progress.
No progress. Yes.
Awesome. The Rock Story. And you can get your book
Yeah.
on Amazon and other places.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
They sell it
Okay.
on all the platforms.
Awesome.
Mhm.
The Rock Story.
I appreciate you. Yeah.
We so
no
appreciate
progress.
you as well, and share. If you can share this podcast as well, and we would definitely be in touch to have an in-person
Okay.
workshop. Thank you so much, everyone, for
Love that.
yes, absolutely, it's needed. It's needed. So
Yeah.
thank you, everyone, for
For the
joining
team. Yeah.
in with us on this podcast. Bullied to gangsta to fall, and now he's getting up, and God is taking him higher. Amen. Thank you so much. So until
Yes.
next time, we'll keep you all posted on Jason coming back, and then our next mental health podcast. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, Lise.
Oh, hey, Jimmy. Someone say, hey, Jimmy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lise.
Thank you too, Jason. Have a good evening.
Okay, sweetheart. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.